The hiss of decompressing gas echoed through the chamber as Cryopod 07 cracked open. Commander Isla Wren gasped in her first breath, lungs burning with the sting of reanimation. Her vision swam with static, and every muscle screamed as blood surged back into frozen tissue. She clutched the sides of the pod, struggling to remember anything. Nothing. No name. No mission. No past. Dim emergency lights bathed the cryo bay in crimson. Others were waking, their pods hissing in reluctant unison. A few remained still, dark, unresponsive. A rhythmic klaxon pulsed from the corridor beyond, like a slow heartbeat. Isla staggered forward, feet bare on cold metal, and caught her reflection in the pod's frosted glass. A stranger stared back. "Who are we?" a man croaked nearby. His eyes were wide, panicked. Isla didn't answer. She didn't know. The wall screen flickered to life, displaying a grainy image of a swirling mass, pitch black against a background of warped stars. Gravity indicators blinked erratically. A black hole, and they were drifting toward it. Something was wrong with the ship. Something was wrong with them. And in the silence that followed, they all felt it. An unseen presence, watching, not from outside, from within. They moved together like ghosts, barefoot, silent, instinctively wary of every shadow. The corridor leading to the command deck was half-lit, flickering with dying overheads. Wires hung from torn panels, and the hum of the engines was gone. In its place, only the creaking of metal under stress and the distant groan of the ship being pulled toward the unknown. "Why don't we remember?" the same man asked again. His ID tag read Dr. Eli Voss, but the name felt hollow on his tongue. "Maybe we were exposed to something," Isla offered, though her voice lacked conviction. Her own name had only come from a blinking panel near her pod. It didn't feel like hers. The bridge door was jammed halfway open. Isla crouched and slid through first, scanning the room. Monitors blinked with corrupted data. Star maps twitched and stuttered. A faint transmission looped in the background, garbled speech in no known language, distorted like a broken record trying to scream. No one was here, no sign of a command crew. Just empty chairs, buckled straps, and a sticky smear of blood across the navigation console. Eli stepped toward it and stopped cold. Isla, the black hole. She looked. The ship wasn't orbiting it. It was spiraling in. "Engines are dead," Isla whispered, checking the console. "Life support's on backup, and the ship's logs are locked, encrypted." "Who locked them?" Isla didn't answer. On a cracked monitor above the helm, a video file appeared. It had no title, just a timestamp from 4 days ago and one word: observe. It began to play. The video opened with the static hiss of a damaged feed. Lines ran through the frame, distorting faces into streaks of light and shadow. The scene showed the cryo bay, this very ship, but not as they had found it. The lights were bright, the systems fully functional. Crew members moved briskly, logging data, adjusting instruments attached to the cryopods. Eli leaned closer. "That's us." Each pod had a label: Isla, Eli, dozens more. But the figures moving in the video, none of them matched those names. The people monitoring the cryopods wore no identifiable insignia. Their faces were oddly smooth, featureless, like half-rendered holograms. One turned toward the camera. Its eyes were too large. The feed jumped. One of the crew began thrashing inside a pod. The unknown figures didn't flinch. Instead, they watched, clipboards in hand, as the subject screamed silently, then went limp. Another cut, a different pod, another test. Again and again. The final frame lingered for a moment too long. The view zoomed in on Isla's sleeping face behind cryoglass, eyes twitching under lids. Then the screen went black. Silence. "What the hell was that?" Eli said, voice shaking. Isla's hand hovered over the console. "They were studying us." "Who are they?" Before either could answer, the bridge lights flickered violently. An alarm blared from deep within the ship, and a voice, synthetic, female, and emotionless, echoed from the intercom. "Subject 14 has exited containment. All observers proceed to isolation protocols." Isla's blood ran cold. There were others on board, and at least one was now loose. The hallway outside the bridge was darker now. Lights blinked in and out like fireflies, losing the will to live. The ship's groaning intensified, echoing like a dying animal. Isla and Eli moved quickly, footsteps quiet, every nerve on edge. "Containment sectors in the lower deck," Eli muttered, checking a cracked floor plan screen. "If something got out, we need to know what we're dealing with," Isla said, though she wasn't sure why. Survival instinct should have told her to run, but something deeper, an unnatural compulsion, was pulling her forward, like she was part of something much bigger, like she always had been. As they descended the emergency ladder to Deck C, the temperature dropped. Their breath misted. Frost crept along the walls like veins. In the flickering light, Isla spotted something that hadn't been there before. A handprint. Not human. Too long. Too thin. 4 fingers, pressed into the frost like it had burned its shape into the wall. Eli stepped back. "What the hell is that?" Before she could answer, a loud clang rang out from the corridor ahead. They froze. Then, movement. Something darted across the hallway in the distance. Fast, unnatural. "Subject 14?" Isla whispered. As if in answer, a door at the end of the hallway slowly creaked open on its own. Light poured from inside. Not white, not artificial, green, pulsing, alive. A low hum vibrated in their bones. They exchanged one look and stepped inside. Inside the chamber, containment pods lined the walls, all empty, all open, except one. A single pod remained sealed. Its display flickered with a red warning, specimen unstable. Observation halted. Inside was a figure, and it looked exactly like Isla. Isla stared into the pod, heart pounding. The figure inside, her double, floated in suspension, eyes closed, skin pale. But there was something off, subtle, like a corrupted reflection in still water. Her features twitched now and then, as if something inside was trying to surface. Eli backed away, whispering, "That's not you. It looks like you, but it's not." Isla stepped closer. "What if it is? What if I'm the copy?" The pod's vitals flickered. Rapid neural activity, unstable heart rhythm, a line labeled synaptic integration, pulsing wildly in red. Above it, a simple readout. Observation cycle 14. Complete preparing, cycle 15. "This is an experiment," Isla said. "And we're the subjects. Maybe this version of me is from a previous cycle. Maybe every cycle resets our memories." Wipes the slate. Eli opened a nearby terminal, fingers shaking. He tapped into the logs, bypassing corrupted systems. Fragments of data scrolled across the screen. Names, dates, neural patterns, behavior flags, and footage. He clicked one. It showed Isla standing in this very room days ago, screaming, covered in blood, slamming her fists against the sealed pod, trying to open it, then collapsing. The footage ended abruptly. "She was trying to free it," Eli said. "You were." A deep thud echoed from somewhere above. Then another, rhythmic, heavy. Something was moving across the upper deck. Eli shut the terminal. "We need to go. Now." But Isla remained frozen, staring at her sleeping twin. A single line of condensation had appeared on the inside of the pod. A finger dragging slowly across the glass. From within, they ran. Back through the frost-lined corridors, up rusted ladders, past rooms that now seemed to breathe with unseen life. The thudding above had stopped, replaced by a deeper sound, like static filtered through a throat, a mechanical chanting that made their teeth ache. They didn't speak until they reached the comms room. "We need answers," Isla said, sealing the door behind them. "Not guesses. Real ones." The communication console flickered erratically. Multiple antennas were pointed outward, broadcasting on frequencies Isla had never seen before. Signals were going out, not in. "They're transmitting something," Eli said. "To who?" He tapped through corrupted files until one unlocked. It was a transmission log, thousands of entries labeled by time, subject, and result. Subject 01, unresponsive. Subject 02, terminated. Subject 03, assimilation failed. Subject 14, partial memory bleed. Aberrant behavior. Monitor closely. 14, Isla whispered. "That's me." Eli found a recording, audio only. He hit play, a voice crackled to life. "Not alien. Heron. I've seen it now, the loops, the resets. Every time I wake up, I remember less. But the body remembers. Little things. Muscle memory, emotions, flashes. That's how I know who to trust and who not to." There was a pause, then, "If I'm hearing this, it means I've started forgetting again. But listen carefully. You are not alone in your head. None of us are. That's the experiment. They're not testing what we'll do. They're testing what we'll become." The audio ended. Silence filled the room. Then a light blinked on the console. Incoming signal, untraceable origin. It played automatically. A chorus of distorted voices spoke in perfect unison. Cycle 15 initiated. Observation resuming. Subject 14 divergence confirmed. And somewhere deep in the ship, something began to laugh. The lights across the ship dimmed to near black. Warning strobes flashed red in slow pulses, like a dying heartbeat. The voice on the intercom repeated, calm and cruel. "Observation resuming. Subject 14. Divergence confirmed." Eli backed away from the console. "We have to end this. We can't let them run another cycle." Isla stared at the screen, the word divergence blinking like a countdown. She felt it now, inside her. Not just fear, not just confusion. Resistance. The memory of standing in that lab, screaming for the other version of herself. The sight of blood smeared across sterile glass. The feeling that someone, something had been guiding every decision. But this time, something was different. She remembered. "We're inside the experiment," she said. "But the ship isn't just a lab. It's the test itself." "What do you mean?" "It's been collecting data over and over. Each cycle ends with failure or termination. But this time," she turned to Eli, "this time I broke the loop. I remembered. That's the divergence." Suddenly, a low groan shook the ship. Metal screamed as if something massive had latched onto the hull. The black hole was no longer distant. It filled the entire viewport, an impossible storm of spinning void. Eli moved to the emergency override. "There's a fail-safe. We can overload the reactor. Destroy the ship." Isla nodded. "If we die on our terms, they lose everything. No data, no next cycle." She took one last look at the console. The final transmission was still open. One button labeled Respond blinked on the screen. Her finger hovered over it. "What are you doing?" Eli asked. "I want them to hear this." She pressed it and spoke. "We are not your experiment. We are not your subjects. This ends now." Then she turned, helped Eli lock in the override, and together they opened the core. In the final seconds, as the reactor built toward rupture and gravity tore at the walls, Isla felt something lift from her. Not fear, not control. Freedom. The last thing she saw was the black hole folding in on itself, like it too was watching. Then nothing.